Hi, everyone. Welcome to Family Communication. Today is Wednesday, April 8th. We're in Chapter 8 on power, influence, and decision making. I'm going to try to fly through these slides, and I'm not going to be able to cover everything in the chapter, so please be sure that you read the chapter on your own. And also, we have been talking in discussion board. If you haven't logged into the discussion board on Canvas, please do, because we're talking about getting a Zoom meeting going for our class for next Wednesday. So not today, but a week from today. And I would love to do that. I'd love to see all of your faces. I'll do a live lecture via Zoom. And hey, like I said, when this whole thing started, maybe we'll decide that's the way to go. Maybe we'll decide to do that once a week. Who knows? I am here for you all. I just want to make this the best experience in this strange situation as possible. So let's go ahead and get going. Power, influence, and decision making. I'm going to start out with a story about power and influence and decision making in my own family with me and my mom. As you all have heard me say before, my mom and I am her only child. She's widowed and she lives in Florida by herself in a retirement community. She has her own home and she lives there. A bunch of friends live there, but obviously I'm very worried about her now because of the situation. Florida is kind of a hot spot for the coronavirus. So you can imagine the kind of influence and persuasion that I have been enacting with her to make sure that she is complying with all of the orders. So I have told her that she can no longer go to the grocery store. I set up an Instacart and we would just chat on the phone and I would go through Instacart and we would pick her items so she has enough groceries for a month. So that was last week. So this week, still talking about don't do this, don't do that. Make sure that she still wants to play golf, and so she drives her own golf cart, and her friends stay 6 feet apart from each other. Then the other day, I hadn't heard from her in an afternoon. Now, usually we chat several times a day since all of this has started. When I called her for our evening call, I found out why. She was hiding from me because she had done something that she knew I would disapprove of. She had decided that she wanted to ride her bike. Now, mind you, my mom is 81 years old, which I'm happy she still rides her bike, but she decided she wanted to ride her bike. She asked a neighbor to come over and pump air into her tire. And when the neighbor came over, he told her, well, you need a new tube inside your tire because this air is not going to fix this. Then he told her, bad advice. Why don't you try a store down in town and see if they're open and see if they have a tube for your bicycle tire? So what does my mom do? She takes this bad advice. This is after I told her, don't go into a grocery store, and she's going to go to a bicycle shop. So she went to the bicycle shop. She did not practice social distancing. The store was open for some bizarre reason. I can't imagine that bicycle stuff is an essential service, but they were open. And she went in and she bought her tire and brought it back and then told me about it later. Can you imagine how upset I was with her, and now how my influence and persuasive tactics that I'm trying to use on her have intensified? So that's just a brief story to get us started, to think about power, influence, and decision making. Okay, so now I can't get my slideshow to, oh, there we are. Yay. Bear with me, folks. I'm new at this. Alrighty. Power, influence, and decision making. How does this play out in your families? Who do you ask for permission to skip a family reunion or a vacation? When making a decision, does your family sit down together and discuss the issue, or does one member of the family just kind of take control, or what? How have these things changed over the years? That picture, by the way, is of my husband and his 3 sisters at a family reunion a few years ago. So you all are probably in your families now, and some of you I know have moved back home, and maybe you have noticed how these kinds of things have changed and shifted since you have been living in the house. Maybe you all make decisions together in a way that you didn't before all of this started happening. So these are the kinds of things we're going to talk about. So what is power? Power, and that's my husband and my son there on the slide, looking silly a few years ago, trying to figure out who's the stronger. Power is the ability to change the behavior of other family members. And this is either potential ability or actual ability. And each family member exercises some degree of power in order to have some control over their life. So when does this start? It starts in toddlerhood. Anyone who's ever been around a toddler knows that children will sometimes have tantrums to try to exercise power, to try to get done what they want at the expense of other people. So it's the ability to change the behavior of other family members, power. And so what are some aspects of power? Well, we have power bases, and what our power bases are just resources that we all use to increase our chances of exerting control in a specific situation. So resources are whatever is perceived as rewarding to an individual or a relationship. And so McDonald talked about 5 resources: normative, economic, affective, personal, and cognitive resources. And just a silly aside, whatever is perceived as rewarding to an individual or relationship. I remember when my kids were young that for whatever reason, my daughters used to like to watch their brother play video games. And he picked up on this really quickly. And he decided that he was going to try to in order for them to earn the privilege of sitting in his room on his floor and watching him play video games, they were going to have to do things for him, chores, and be his servant. That was what he would do. He was using a power resource to get them to do something so that they could do something that they perceived as rewarding. I don't know why watching someone else play video games would be rewarding, but it was. So power bases, our first one are normative bases, and these things are just based on the values of your family. So maybe the mother has the power to manage the day-to-day activities of the children. Maybe the father, and obviously this example assumes a 2-parent family with a mother and a father, that maybe only the father works and deals with financial issues, and therefore the mom kind of controls things that have to do with the children, like children, what schools they go to and what activities they have. And the father deals with other issues. So these are just normative things based on the family's values, or based on the societal definitions of where authority lies. In my family, I was the one that was usually in charge when the kids were young of their activities. So they all took music lessons. They all played sports. But then when they got older, my husband got more involved, especially when it had to do with Boy Scouts and sports like that. So economic resources, this is just what it sounds like, money. Who controls the money in your family? Was it your mom? Was it your dad? If you came from a 2-parent household like that, was it both parents together? Or obviously, if you came from a single parent home, it would have been maybe one parent that controlled all of the resources. So Affective resources are similar to relational currencies that we talked about last year, not last year, last week. Maybe it was last year. I don't know what day it is anymore. But affective resources are similar to relational currencies. And it has to do with nurturing. So maybe, this example, a mother may withhold her normal affection to a son who breaks curfew. That's a power base based on, it's an affective resource. However, I bet you all now talk about power and how it shifts in families as the family expands throughout the life cycle. You as children, grown children, adult children, now I bet have more control over these resources, right? Your parent wants to hear from you. They really value spending time with you. And then what? If they get too much in your stuff, you're going to turn it off, right? You're not going to spend time with them. You're not going to, do family activities maybe the way that they would like to. So the older you get, the more you are in control of these affective resources. Personal resources, this is where each family member, their personality, maybe their physical appearance or their role competence, that is a power base for them. The example I have here is from a long time ago when my daughter Sarah used to make a cute face to get what she wanted from her grandparents. It's real easy to do this, right? Kids with grandparents, you know what your personal resource is, that you can use that kind of to wield power in your family. Maybe you're good at sports, and if you don't get something you want, you could tell your parents, well, and I guess I just won't play that anymore. And this has to do with your own personality and how you use that and wield that as a power base. Cognitive resources, these are just insights that family members have, or the sense of how their power influences their own actions and affects others. So some children learn at a really young age what strategies to use when trying to get what they want from different family members. Maybe this is you. Maybe you have tried different strategies and tactics on different family members to get them to do what you want. So not all family members possess all of these power bases equally or use all of them in a given situation. I don't know why I have a picture of my mom's house there, but that's my mom's house in Florida. That's where she lives. It was a few years ago this picture was taken. So power processes, these are just communication practices that affect family discussions and arguments and decision making, especially in crisis situation. And power processes are attempts to control other people through influence and persuasion. Again, the whole point of this slide is just to drive home the fact that this is a communicative process. So power and influence is a communicative process. And power outcomes, this focuses on who makes decisions and wins. And of course, the power bases that we just talked about influence power outcomes. So who makes decisions and wins? Sometimes this is embedded in the family hierarchy, because the family hierarchy establishes guidelines for power processes that avoid conflict, yet affect the power outcomes. So the hierarchies in families shift throughout time. Family systems don't stay the same, right? Systems are dynamic. So now, whereas when I was a child growing up and in college, when my parents paid my college tuition, my parents were at the top of the hierarchy. Now it's just me and my mom in that particular family. And I'm kind of the one that is in control of the power base here. I'm the one telling her, look, you need to do this, this, and this, and don't you ever tell me you left your house to go buy a bicycle tire again. So it's really funny how the hierarchy shifts throughout time. orchestration power. This is when certain family members are allowed to make non-critical decisions. So when my kids were young, maybe if we were going out for a family dinner or something, we would let them decide where we went, or they could vote on it. And that's just orchestration power, giving them non-critical decisions. And then implementation power is who carries out the power decisions. All right, power development. Again, this is a transactional nature. This is a communicative process. Power develops through communication. So our two examples here are that, like, an alcoholic cannot control a spouse unless the non-alcoholic spouse permits it. A mother relinquishes her own personal control when she gives in to an acting out child and gives that child power over her. So this is a transactional process. Again, remember system theory. I know it seems like ages ago that we talked about system theory and how we don't look at individuals when we're taking a system perspective. We look at patterns of communication between people. Okay, we look at patterns of communication and how they develop and then form the culture, if you will, that is the system. So what does this look like in spouses? So spouses obviously have power. Sometimes marital power reflects the extent to which one spouse loves and needs the other. The spouse with the strongest feelings may put themselves in a less powerful position because the person with less interest can more easily control the one more involved. And then this person has a greater range of authority because of their higher relative authority. So an example of this, again, from my friend who you'll never meet. I like to use examples of friends' lives. And one of my friends in particular, who is divorced now, but was in a relationship, a 28-year marriage, where her husband really had the most power in their relationship. And she did not want to leave because she thought that she was going to break up the family. There were children involved. She did everything she could, to please this person. And, as it often does, the person that has the most power in the relationship then just kind of takes off with that power. And he, at one point ended up sending their son to a military high school, boarding school for really, he didn't even do anything that bad. And my friend did not want this to happen, but her husband was, the one wielding the authority. So it was really a really difficult situation when one spouse in a relationship has power like this. So, there's me and my husband on the beach. It's Port Aransas. So sometimes, in this, it says wife dominant or husband dominant, but it could just be spouse dominant if it's a homosexual couple. This is just dominance by one spouse that can permeate all areas of family power. This is kind of what I was talking about in my previous example. So the use of resources or bases, power processes, and power outcomes. If the relationship in the family, this is only if it's a two-parent household, sometimes can look like this, where one of the spousal pair has more power than the other. Or power development can be syncretic. This is a relationship where, again, a two-parent household where almost everything is shared. Authority is shared and there's joint decision making. So maybe this is your home. Maybe you're getting a look at your parents' relationship in a different way now that you are back home, for those of you all that are, and you're getting a look at their relationship and seeing, what's going on. Is it syncretic, do you think? Does one of them have more say in what goes on in the family? Or is it autonomic? And this is where the couple actually divides authority. So different areas are assigned to different spouses. So maybe the wife makes the decisions regarding family vacations, a new home, where the kids go to school, and the husband makes decisions regarding the purchase of anything with a motor on it. That's a car my husband rebuilt, by the way. He and my son, well, really him, was supposed to be my son too, but it's a 1970 Mustang. My son got to drive it for a few years while he was in college. I think you can hear my pug in the background. He's barking. So in my own family, we have this kind of relationship, my husband and I, because I am the one that's in charge of decisions that take place inside the house. Usually I do not want my husband involved in any kind of decision that involves decorating the house, what color I should put on the walls, that kind of thing. And really, when it comes to motor vehicles and that kind of stuff, I don't even care. He's the one that has control over all that stuff. So autonomic, where people divide authority. So what about children? This is such a weird slide. Somewhere in the background there are my 3 children from several years ago. So traditionally, parents are expected to control and be responsible for their children's behavior. And of course, the law places power in parents' hands. But think about the ways that you all deal with this. You struggle to establish your position in the family, to gain certain resources, to establish identity. So this, again, when we said this starts in toddlerhood, where you kind of have to figure out, where do you fit into this system? How much power do you have? How do you get what you want? How do you gain certain resources? And this is all communicative in nature. And sometimes children influence the interaction and outcomes of power struggles in families by using power plays, like interruptions and screaming. Or in adolescence, sometimes this takes a serious form, like rebellious behavior, drinking, drugs, sexual promiscuity, that kind of stuff. I don't know who this person is. I was just trying to find a rebellious looking adolescent online. I have no idea who it is. Anyway, that is it, folks. That's enough for today. So I am going to close this. Please read the rest of chapter 8 on influence, and we will come back. I will reconvene. You have Friday off. You have Monday off, which is kind of strange. I will do my video announcement on YouTube like I always do on Sunday. I'll do that on Monday because Sunday is Easter. And then I'll send out a Zoom invite, and let's have class. Let's have class online and do it together a week from today, a week from Wednesday, and we'll see how that goes. Hope you're all doing great. Miss you.